All right, 50K ready. What's going on, guys? Coming off of my fourth 100 miler. Granted, the last one didn't go so well. I made a couple changes and learned some lessons, both good and bad, during this race. And I kind of want to dedicate this episode not so much to what's next because we have plenty of time to talk about that, but this is going to be an episode that I kind of want to come back and listen to before my next 100, or if you are doing a 100 or planning 100, this might be one that you want to listen to just because, man, there's so many things that can go on during a 100 miler or even 100K, or I guess any ultra, but I think specifically these longer distance ones that you just can't figure stuff out or you can't learn stuff through training. It's actually kind of incredible. It's one of the few things, maybe besides parenting, where the only way to learn it is to do it. And the more I do it, the more things, frankly, I learn on both the good and the bad side of things. First, we'll give a little bit of context and a backstory. And if you're listening to this on your long run, I hope you're having a dope run. I hope it's fall. The weather's cooling down. If you're kind of like me and you like to just sit down and watch us on YouTube, what's up? But I've been running this particular race, not the 100, this is my fourth year, and it was my first trail run. Now, it is a local race. It's called the Tesla Hertz, and the Tesla Hertz hosts a number of different distances that have also increased over the years. There's a 10 miler, a night 10 miler, a 50K, a night 50K, 50 miler, 100K, 100 miler, and a 150. And essentially what it is, it's a 10-mile loop, maybe like 10.4 miles with, I would say, 500 or 600 feet for each loop, most of which coming in one climb. That's like 130, 140 feet. And they just stagger the starts and you pretty much go out. Very, very favorable cutoffs. I think the cutoff is like 6 a.m. on Monday for all of the races. The first race to start is the Friday night. The 150 miler starts at like 6 p.m. or something like that. But the 10 miler I did was my first trail race, and I was doing it in road shoes, and I sprained my ankle and got through it in like 2 hours and 40 minutes. And then the following year, which I made a video about, I came back and I did much better. I got second place overall, and I think that year I went like 140. Then last year I bumped it up to the 50K, which was an incredible like end of the season 50K. And I got to be honest, that was kind of what I was planning or hoping to do this year. And with what happened at UTMB going down, I just had this feeling that I needed a little bit of redemption. And I mentioned that on social media and things like that. And I think in all reality, if I was to point to like one mistake that I made right from jump, was that when you train for a race, especially something as race specific as UTMB, you develop a certain amount of fitness for that particular race and a skill set. And like I said, you go through your peak weeks where you're sharpening for that particular race. I don't think that fitness necessarily always is going to translate into other races as far as like technique and sharpening, right? I went from training for UTMB with 32,000 feet, pretty much all power hiking all summer, vert, and then got back and was like, all right, well, I need redemption. I'm going to do the Tesla Hertz, which I think at the end of the day, I think I got 5,000 feet and requires way more running. And to say that I took the course lightly, I don't think I took the course lightly, and I don't think I took the race lightly. I've definitely learned that lesson before, that regardless of how flat it is or not, I learned that at Javelina last year when everyone told me I was doing a flat 100, and then I got my face kicked in because I took it lightly. I don't think I took it lightly. I just think that I took a skill set and a level of fitness into a race that wasn't designed for that particular race, if that makes sense. I mean, you take like an extreme guy, like someone like Killian, yeah, they're going to go from being a mountain goat and they're going to come down into just, being able to run flat. It's no big deal. But for a guy like me, coming into a race where I was expected to run a majority of the time because of the lack of elevation, the lack of climbing, I think that definitely threw a little bit of a wrench in plans. So I guess really the lesson learned there is that when you are training for a race, you need to train specifically for that particular race and that terrain, especially during those peak weeks, unless you're one of the people that likes to get into my DMs that no matter what I say, I'll always be wrong, and it'll never be good enough for you. And, your way is the only way. So for those few people that every single time I speak, they got to criticize it. Yeah. Okay, cool. You don't need to train specifics. You just keep doing you. And you're a badass, and you keep doing whatever you're doing, and I'll keep just fucking up, and whatever I do is not right, not good enough. Rant over. I kind of went into the race ready to go, and it was good enough time after UTMB where I fully recovered. I got one or two big 85, 90-mile weeks in, and then I was able to taper. On Thursday, the night before the race, originally it was canceled. That we had a nor'easter that was supposed to come into town, and I've never been an RD, so I'm not gonna point fingers and say whether a race should or should not be canceled. Or, yeah, granted, I have opinions on how things maybe could have been scheduled differently or done differently, and especially now in hindsight when the weather wasn't that bad, it's easy to point fingers and be like, oh, the race screwed that up. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I frankly got lucky that I didn't have to travel, so pushing it back by a week wasn't that big of a deal, but definitely gave me an extra week of, quote, taper, which I don't love. I like a short taper. I like to stay sharp. So there was that, but I also had a head cold, so I was able to get rid of that head cold in the week, which was definitely a bonus. And this never-ending saga of my hamstring never healing and only feeling better when I run and feeling worse when I don't, but not getting any better, not getting any worse. I guess it was a good thing that I got to rest that a little bit longer. But yeah, and the weather, everything aligned. I always bitch about how I get shitty weather. I have nothing to complain about. Did not have a cold. My hammy felt okay, all things considered. The weather was perfect. It was local. I had a ton of friends and family that were going to be there to support me. This was supposed to line up to be an awesome race. Now, one thing I did right going into the race is that I had very low, if any, expectations just to finish. This was just supposed to be redemption from UTMB. I can put time goals and things on future races if I race again. But if there's anything, I went in just finish. And I think it was mixed because I went in thinking, all right, I just need to finish, which kind of took that competitive nervousness out of the equation for me. I've always felt like I had to at least be maybe either I'm fighting cutoffs like UTMB or the bigger races, or like Javelina, I had ambitious time goals of going fast. So this was the first race that I went into where I didn't have that nervous feeling. I knew the cutoff was 30 something. I knew maybe even 40 something hours. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue. So I kind of just was all right, I'm going to kick it, but I don't know if I went into the race not as sharp because nerves kind of fire me up and get me ready to rock. I can't tell. But, I mean, Jake came in from out of town and got in on Friday, and we kind of just did our normal Friday thing. We got to bed. I go to bed late as it is. I could try and go to bed before a race early, but I'm just going to toss and turn in bed. I think we got to bed at 10 o'clock for a 6 a.m. start. Got to the race. The weather is absolutely perfect. Now, one thing that I do want to talk to future Brad about, it's the nutrition side of things. And I'm going to be very, very careful about what I say because I know other people might be listening. Over the entire summer, I mean, even back to Javelina, I have been getting nauseous bad through not canyons. Canyons was fine, but through SB50, through another 60K I did, through Javelina, the Backyard Ultra last year. I've just been having these weird feelings of nausea and always coming at right around the same time, between 10 and 12 hours. And I just could not put my finger on it for the longest time. At first, I thought it was the hot weather. But then the Backyard Ultra last year was cold, literally freezing cold. Our bottles were freezing on our chests. So I knew it wasn't that. And I also had done a race with Jake a couple weeks ago where I was pacing him, and it was cool. Once again, like not hot at all. Like I raced with him at night. I paced him at night. And still towards the end, I think I was like 7 hours in with him when I started just to get that feeling of like, okay, I'm a little bit nauseous. And I could not put my finger on the things that were making me feel nauseous. It was actually something that Jake said, which totally just made me look in places where maybe I was afraid to look, or that I thought no way, shape, or form could I look there. And what he said to me was, man, I'm feeling a little woozy, and I think it's this darn tailwind again. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you know me, I'm not a big nutrition guy. He takes gels. He's like, but whenever I start to get a little bit of tailwind in my bottle, I get a little bit nauseous. And I'm thinking to myself, that can't be the thing making me nauseous, because I annihilate tailwind. I love it. That's all I train with in my bottles. That's all I do. And I always go for tailwind in my bottles over any gels. So I'm like, there's no way. So I started bouncing a couple of ideas off people. Like, could it be tailwind? And then like I literally went back to when I tried tailwind for the first time, and it was right before SP50. And I took tailwind in every single race, through all my training blocks, through Javelina, through everything. And I'm like, wow, really? The only thing that has changed significantly is the tailwind. And like I said, I can give other long things that I did not get nauseous. I mean, I did the Grand Canyon in 17 hours, and I didn't get nauseous until the end. And it wasn't until I put something in my bottle and then started drinking, and that was an electrolyte mix. I got sick right at the end. In canyons, I did not get nauseous at all. And it got hot during canyons until the last little bit, when everyone kept telling me I need electrolytes. It wasn't the tailwind. And I feel like I understand this now more, that it was the sodium. And I am always a guy, and this is why I said I have to be careful with what I say. I think that the quote unquote saltwater industry, which is another, I mean, that's what it is, right? The electrolyte industry is a saltwater industry. They are selling you salt water and having you think that if you do not consume enough salt water, you will going to fail races. And they've brainwashed people into thinking that your performance is dictated by how much salt you consume. Myself included, guys. Like I'm talking from experience. This is a lesson that I've learned. And that if you're cramping, it's salt. If you're not running well, it's salt. If you're not peeing enough, it's salt. If you're peeing too much, you're going to lose all your salt. And I guess I started realizing the scam of this when I started listening to people that were really, really smarter than me outside the sport, that were saying like, yeah, people are all taking these sweat tests. And I've taken a sweat test as well. So I know how many milligrams of sodium that I lose. I also know that I'm one of those salty sweaters that has the salt rings. My body feels like sandpaper. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, I'm salty, so I need salt. I need salt. And one scoop of Tailwind has like 310 milligrams of salt, but I'm doing 2. And it turns out like I was essentially chugging salt water. And it was actually becoming worse in cooler temps when I was not losing a lot of sodium. And on a long training run, oh, you know what it was? It was, here it is. When I won the 6-hour event 4 weeks ago, that was the first race where I was like, I'm going to put this to the test. The only thing I'm going to put in my bottle today, now granted, it was 6 hours, so I only took it with a grain of salt. See what I did there? I'm going to go 6 hours hard, and I'm not going to take any salt supplements. Now, I'm an American. I already know, and here's my thinking, that I have a really, really salty diet as it is. I crush pizza. I crush sauce on my pasta. You know, like, I love salami. I love charcuterie. Like, I love all these things. And I kind of tested that charcuterie theory too. Like, in UTMB, I really didn't take a lot of salt. I'm like, I'm going to try and get some from my food. And in this 6-hour race, a couple of weeks back, I went 6 hours hard and I did not take any supplemental salt outside of just the normal salty foods that I consume. And I didn't have one GI issue. I did not get nauseous. I ran 8:50 pace for 6 hours, PR'd everything, PR'd my marathon, PR'd my 50K, PR'd everything under the sun, PR'd last year's race, and zero nausea in a hot day. Tarps off, I think it was 80 to 85 degrees. When I got home, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, this is at least something to further study. It was only 6 hours. Let's go a little bit longer and let's see what happens. And I knew I was going to try that at Javelina. I mean, not Javelina. I wish I was at Javelina again. Damn it. We'll talk about that maybe in a second. But I knew I was going to try that at Tesla, especially with no time goals. I was like, I can either do it. And yeah, maybe as they tell me, all of my muscles will seize and cramp and I'll be doomed, you know, and then I'll just take some salt supplements and I'll be fine. But I needed to know how long I could really fight nausea. I just did. So I went into this race, and that was one thing that I wanted to change. I wanted to only consume water, which was also going to up my gel consumption, which I was a little nervous about. But I'll tell you now, just so we can get past nutrition, I consumed 30 or 31 cis beta fuel gels in the race. Zero GI issues. Dude, guys, this might be TMI. I didn't even fart once the whole day. 30 to 31 gels of beta fuel. I had around lunchtime, I had a ham, salami, provolone sandwich. There was salt. And I had another one of those same exact sandwiches around dinner. I had pizza, but I just wasn't feeling it. And did not get nauseous the entire 32-hour race. Not one time. No GI. And I'm like, okay, future Brad, we are done. Now with Tailwind. I put it in my bottles yesterday when I ran. But for long stuff, I just can't. I was looking at Tailwind more from the calorie standpoint and not from the sodium standpoint. And frankly, I can't get the calories I need from Tailwind without ODing on salt. Now, if it's over 90 and things like that, yeah, but that's, I think, when I'm going to start to supplement with salt pills. But in these cooler temperatures, especially at my low intensities at 100, I've just been screwing myself with salt. I really have. I think Tara gave me a sip because I ran out of water or something. And I was like, hey, can I get a sip of your water? And she had one scoop of Tailwind in her bottles. Like I said, we trained for that, and she was pacing me for 20 miles. So she had it in there. And I don't know if it was mental, but I took one sip out of her bottle, the naked flavor of Tailwind, and I felt my stomach getting woozy. And like I said, a little bit in my head. But I really think I'm done with stuff in my bottles until I can find something that I can get my bottles with a lower sodium count. So if you know something, if you know an endurance formula out there that has very little flavor, little taste with low sodium, that's the other thing too. Like I feel like every nutrition company is like, well, the consumer's looking for the sodium count. And whether they believe it or not, they feel like they have to put sodium in their endurance formulas just because. And I remember when I used to do Try, there was a company that I worked with where you could make your own endurance formula. I might just try and look into that again and see if I can get myself an endurance formula that I could put into my bottles that also has zero sodium or low sodium. Because another thing that this did was it kept me more hydrated. Because as my stomach turned later in races, I didn't want the flavor. I didn't want anything in my bottles. I didn't want to eat anything. So because I'm getting my nutrition from my liquids, but I'm not taking the nutrition, I'm not taking in liquids, then I get dehydrated and the whole snowball happens. My brother Dan will tell you when we were at mile 80, in the 10-mile loop from 70 to 80, I peed 3 times, maybe too much. But I've never peed clear 80 hours into a race before, 80 miles into a race before. And at that point, I was probably 20-something and change. But I was able to consume so much water because I never had to. I mean, I can always take water, even when you're nauseous. But it was always that little thing that I had to put in my bottle to get nutrition or to get salt that's the thing that kept me from drinking. And that's what started the waterfall of staying dehydrated. So I think that's the number one thing I'm taking into the winter and into my next race is I just need to supplement my sodium. I don't need nearly as much as I thought. Okay. But Brad, the cramping. Guys, you're cramping because your muscles are failing. In most cases. 95%. Granted, hot day, whatever. Yeah, maybe. But, dude, you're cramping because you weren't fit enough. I said it. Sorry. It's not the salt. It's not the salt. You cramped because you weren't fit. We'll get into not fit in a second. So, 10-mile loops, going out, water. The second thing I did right in this race is for the first time in Brad Finn racing history, I did not show a blow up. I let everybody go. Not everybody. I think I went out like middle of the pack. I knew that because this was a local race and I knew so many people that were racing, I knew that if I started up in the front, I was going to go out with my friends who are fitter than me, faster than me. Charles won the race in like 18 hours. And I probably would have went out and ran the first mile or two with him if I did. So pumped. And it led to the questions of like, in this race, I PR'd my 50 mile and I PR'd my 100K. And people would say immediately to that, myself included, probably if somebody told me that, well, you shouldn't be PRing your 100K in a 100 miler. But if the caveat on that is I PR'd my 50 mile and my 100K because this was the first time in history I had not blown up by then it's like, okay. I ran so steady, a little bit of walk run for the first 100K, 60 miles. Nice 12:10, 12:15 pace. Course super soft, pine needles, sandy sections, but more windy. Like it was hard to get in a rhythm, especially late in the race when the legs were fatigued, to just get the legs moving and keep them moving in a straight line. It was very essy and it was very up and down, especially the first part of the loop. So it was slow, but I was so pumped. I came in, like 12:05 pace the first lap, and then 12:15 the second lap, and then I got to 100K. And here's really what happened. And this is going to lead maybe into the rest of this short episode. I felt like every single race there had to be an excuse of why things didn't go to plan or why the death march came out. And this one, I finally freaking realized that I didn't have anything to blame except for myself. Last year at Javelina, I was like, oh, the heat. The heat's what banged me up and made me walk. At UTMB, the vert. The vert is the thing that made me walk. At Canyons, it's my first race. It's the downhills and blowing up my quads that made me walk. This was frankly a excuseless race. I had nothing. The only thing I could do, and this has been a wild perspective over the last week since I finished, I just had to recognize the fact that I am fit enough to get through a 100-mile distance. I am not fit enough to run 100 miles, and I am not fit enough to run or race a 100-mile race. And I thought by saying that previous that I would be putting myself down. Like, oh, Brad, you're doing it. You're doing fine, man. Like, don't have that negative self-talk. The reality of the situation is at 100K, my legs break down. The 40-mile race I did, 8:51 pace, did great. And I think a 50-mile race, I think that's what my legs are conditioned to race and to finish strong. On a good day, flat 100K, I could probably push a little bit. I think I can get my 100K pace maybe down to like 11 minutes, 10:30, 11. But after that, with my training, I have to go into survival mode. I am not fit enough to run that sort of distance. And I've identified over the last week a couple of things, and it's also changed my perspective on what the next year or even 2 years might look like. I do not strength train enough. I do the bare minimum. And I've talked with my friends at length, and I've even spoke to some of you, that if we look at like two major pillars of racing, right? You have your aerobic base and your VO2 max and how those two play together. And then you have muscular endurance. And then I guess that small piece of mental, which is like how people in 100 milers can win if they're less fit. I think we would ideally like to have our muscular endurance be at a ratio that's pretty close to our aerobic base and our VO2 max. I think it is totally true and valid when people say that by raising your VO2 max, you raise the entire floor and your entire fitness goes up. What I did not realize, and where I'll push back on that a little bit, is there's still, even though you're raising the floor, there gets to a point where muscular endurance is going to come in and say, I don't give a shit what your VO2 max is. We're not running anymore. Like, that was cute, but we don't need this running anymore. We're not going to run. And for me, for Brad, and the way Brad trains, my aerobic base and VO2 max are way higher. Now, I'm not saying I have elite VO2 maxes and aerobic base. I will pride myself. My aerobic base is very good. I love low and slow. What I'm saying is that my aerobic base, in proportion to where my muscular endurance is way off ratio-wise. And I mean, that would make sense. I run a lot low and slow, and every once in a while, I like a full send to keep my VO2 max in the mid-50s. I lift the bare minimum. Now, to bring out the excuse train, I don't have a rotator cuff or a labrum, so like pull-ups and push-ups are pretty much out for me. Pressing overhead is pretty much out for me, but that is an overhead body movement. And I also was always afraid to lift heavy in squats. One, because it hurts, it's painful, and I hate being sore in the legs. It's one of the worst things ever when you can't sit down to poop without having to grab something. And I never wanted to be beat up for running because I always wanted to be glamorous with my miles and glamorous with my vert. And I'm like, it's much cooler to say on Strava and that you hit a 10,000 and 15,000 foot week with 100 miles than it is to try and explain to people that you did a bunch of back squatting this week and you did a bunch of Bulgarian split squats and you did a bunch of whatever, core work. Say what it will be. So I always would default to that sexy, glamorous side of things as opposed to doing the work that I should have been doing. That frankly, and I said that in a moment of weakness in the video for Tesla, I don't know if I was muscularly, endurance-wise ready for UTMB. I think I hit the time cut. Yeah, the storm, the weather, once again, back to making excuses. But now I'm like, even on a perfect day, perfect weather, I don't know if my muscular endurance would have been enough. And if I'm going to race a 100 miler again, I must focus on that just as seriously as I focus on running nice and easy. I'm going to venture to say, unless you're an elite athlete pushing the front, I think that until you find a place where you think that your muscular endurance matches your VO2 max and your aerobic base, the need for speed work other than like sending it in like a local race here and there, I don't think I'm going to do speed work this time. This is going to be something I'm going to test if I race again. I'm just going to do low and zone. I'm going to do zone 1, zone 2. I'm not going to worry about the stupid steady state and intervals and 800s and Norwegian VO2 max sessions. I'm not trying to run a marathon fast. And yeah, cool. I had a really cool VO2 max for a 40-mile race that helped me win. I did some speed work into that. But immediately after that, my legs were thrashed. They're thrashed. I'm a dude, I posted a video the other day. I had a 400 and something pound back squat. I don't know if I can back squat 135 for 5 reps right now, which for a guy that's like, quote, trying to do mountain ultras, unacceptable. Not something I want to say publicly, but it's true. Like I said, this is something I want to come back and listen to. Maybe when I race again, the week of the race, I'm going to look back and be like, yeah, you really couldn't do 135 for 5. And hopefully I'm doing sets of 135 for 10 over and over and over again by the time we get there. My core work and my leg strength needs to improve if I want to be able to race and run 100s. My hamstring is definitely a product of having weak hamstrings. My knee issues are definitely a product of having weak hamstrings, weak glutes, weak core. It's all connected. We know this. I know this. I was just unwilling to do things because I knew that I could hide behind excuses for whatever. You could always find an excuse. Always. It's been easy to find an excuse with the weather and shit. Like, I could always find an excuse. Well, I'm done with that. You know? There's one thing the race taught me is like, yeah, Brad, you had the aerobic fitness. You had great aerobic fitness. You had amazing muscular endurance for 100K. Then after that, it just became a mess. It became a mess and it became survival, and I can survive. And I didn't need to survive the last 40 miles, which I didn't walk the entire 40 miles, but I walked a really, really good portion of it. I had to get through those on determination, really my friends getting me through because I wanted to go home. But what happened was I muscularly was not strong enough to get through the race. Luckily, I was strong enough emotionally. And luckily, I had friends there when I wasn't strong enough emotionally to push me back out on the course, knowing that I could get through. But I think that's the biggest thing that I learned was I can't hide behind the fact, like, I'm so quick to post my runs, my adventures, my big through hikes. I never post strength. And when people DM me and ask about it, I'm like, yeah, I do a little bit. But I think I'm going to race again in the next couple of months here. And I think my running volume is going to go down for the first 4 weeks or so, probably the next month, maybe through Thanksgiving, maybe into the first week in December. It's going to be all strength. I got to get a good strength block because I know that obviously as we head into peak weeks and as I am sharpening for that actual race, whatever that race will be, I know I need to back off the strength a little bit. But just like I have put in huge 6-7 week aerobic fitness bases, I have that. I'm going to carry that through. But instead of just building on that and maybe trying to like raise my VO2 max or whatever, I'm going to try and build some sort of base in strength, calisthenic strength, stepping up on boxes, weighted stuff, like body weight squats even. I need to get stronger in my legs. And that reckoning of, or that realization of knowing that I am failing from a muscular point and I am just surviving races and I am not racing them, it has taken the distances over 100 miles off the table for me, for now. I will not. And I was listening to Cam Hanes. He did actually a really, really good episode on like the dangers of this and not trying to scare people, but talking of the reality. And he said something that was like, there's too many people that are out there just surviving 100s. And they think, I think I actually like wrote down his exact quote, that they are surviving 100s. You need to be able to race a shorter distance, not just survive. Okay. And I looked in the mirror and said, I'm that guy. I'm the quote influencer guy that is frankly making the sport look bad when people are going from 50Ks to 250-mile Cocodonas in a year and a half. And they're blowing up, or they're getting themselves injured, or they're putting themselves at risk for injury. Like, I see Instagram handles couch to Cocodona, and I'm like, I get it. I see the need for the views, and that's definitely going to get some attention, but no. No. And I'm the same way. I think on one of my running goals I posted on my story, committing to a 200 was on that list. Because I felt like I've done a couple hundreds now. What's next? What's next? Go up to 200. Go up to 250. I know now that I need to be able to race whatever time that is. I could say 24 hours for a flat race, okay? But obviously if I head into the mountains, it's going to be a little bit different. But I need to feel good. I need to feel strong for an entire 100 before I will entertain going up. I think that's going to be the best bet. It's going to make it more fun. And it's frankly not going to be as dangerous. I mean, my lack of muscular endurance, this was a, quote, flat race. It took me 32 hours. Almost went slower than canyons in perfect weather. I can't keep my crew out there that long. What am I going to do? I'm going to go do Cocodona or go do Mammoth and get through 80 miles and then walk for 120 miles? Yeah, I probably could do it. But what is that helping? I think more people need to put their ego in check and be like, hey, we are here to race. This is a race. And until we can race, we shouldn't be going up. Right? I coach a lot of athletes. Moving forward, I'm like, I think I'm going to make that part of my criteria, and I'll probably lose athletes because of it, but like, I'm not going to coach you for 100K until you smack the 50K. And I'm not going to coach you for a 100-mile until you've smacked a 100K. Just because I learned that that's probably what's best. Like, Lowen's like, why are we rushing into these things? And I think that also like brought into perspective other excuses that I've been hiding around, which is have your expectations, and I'm talking to myself here, but maybe you have a little bit of a guilty conscience. You're feeling the same way as me. We need to have our expectations match our work ethic. And that's not to say that I'm calling myself lazy, but my expectations do not match the work ethic or the work that Brad Finn can put in. It took me 4 races to know this. That last year at Avellino, when I said I wanted to go sub 24, or when I went to SB50 and I said that I'm going to go sub 12, got my face bashed in. Javelina went 27 hours, missed it by 3 hours. And then again, this race, like, I didn't say I wanted to go 24 hours. I knew that this wasn't the race to do it, but it would have been cool in perfect conditions at home in front of all my friends and family. Would have been dope. Would have been cool. But shit, Brad, you do not put in the work to run a sub 24 hour 100. That is not, I'm not putting myself down. It actually feels so motivating and rejuvenating to say that. It's a positive thing. Because what it means is not that I'm being lazy, but Brad has a full-time job. Brad has 2 kids under 8 years old with multiple activities after school and things on the weekend. Brad has a wife that he's obsessed with, that he just wants to spend all the time in the world with, that frankly right now would rather spend time with her than go on a long run. Brad has a W-2 job. It's an easy W-2 job as far as I'm concerned, but it's still a W-2 job. Brad has multiple small businesses that he's trying to operate at one time. Okay? Brad has brothers that he's trying to really keep close to him, which he's done an amazing job. Even though he's lost both of his parents, he understands the importance of having those brothers close to him and spending time with them. Brad finally recognized the fact that he does not do enough strength work and his legs are weak. So if I want to come out and say, I want to run 24 hours, I have to say that I'm going to put in the work that is necessary. And this is going to be me changing my mind and contradicting things I've said in the past. And this, once again, is going to align to my goals. If you want to survive and get through a 100-mile race, you do not need to put in 100-mile weeks in training. If you want to survive and get through a race, your vert over the week does not need to match the vert in the race. But if you want to make bold goals and you want to be competitive and you want to race, I know now there is no way that you can expect to race hard a 100-mile distance if you can't find 100 miles in a training week. There is no way that you are going to race a mountain ultra with 25,000 feet of climbing if you cannot find 25,000 feet in a training week. I've done 3 100-mile training weeks my whole career. Maybe even 2. One of them might have been a race. What was I thinking that I was going to go sub 24, which is fast, it's a good 100, when I don't strength train and I put in 80-mile weeks flat? For UTMB, yeah, I got a couple 12. I think I've put in like the most vert I've ever put in a year, but I never came close to 20,000. And that race had 32,000 feet. I think my biggest week was 90 miles and 15,000. How on earth did that work ethic tell my expectation that I was going to finish that race? How on earth did running 80 miles really slow with 2,000 feet peaking for Tesla Hertz somehow convince me that I was fit enough to go sub 24 hours? Impossible. So things are going to change. I'm going to get on another episode here in the near future and talk about like my next race. I have one on the calendar. I don't want to talk about it right now, but I think that's going to be another thing that's going to change. I'm done like talking about my goals publicly and then sucking at them and then making excuses. I'm sick of feeling like I'm sick of depending on the external motivation of social media and Strava to push me to my goals. I'm either going to do it or I'm not. I haven't posted on Strava. I kind of deleted the app. I'll get back on because I want to cheer other people on, but I don't think I'm going to post on Strava. Not because I want to hide or sandbag. Like the people on my Discord, I post every single day what I do and exactly what I do. But I want to see if I can work. I want to see how bad I want it. I want to see if I can work my ass off knowing that nobody can see what I'm doing. I think that would be a true test. I want my finish at my next 100 to show all the work I did, not my Strava. Because I'm feeling emotionally weak when it comes to that. I'm hating Instagram more than ever. You know, forget like not being able to grow the channel and this, that, and the other thing. I think it was really like it was painting pictures that I didn't want to see about myself. Like, was I doing it for the video? Was I doing it for the reel? Maybe. That's something I'm going to figure out before my next race. And it's going to start like by probably not posting stuff on Strava. Maybe stepping away from Instagram. And then, like I said, having my actions be my message. Have my actions be, did you mean it? I don't need to post how often I'm strength training on Strava. I want to put up a time in my next race where you'll know there's no way I didn't strength train. And I want to put up a time in my next race where you won't need to know what my max volume was or what my peak weeks look like, but you're going to know they were a lot. And the people closest to me and the people that frankly ask are in my Discord, you are going to think I'm a cyclist, the amount of volume that I'm going to put in. And I'm going to test it. Is volume the answer over speed work? I'm going to settle that debate for myself. Zone 1, zone 2. That's it. And I'm going to write out the whole program for my next race, and I'm going to talk about it in the podcast, and I'm going to put it out in the open. That will be what I'm going to do. And then you're going to know that I do not mess around, and that if I sign a contract with myself, the work will be done. You won't need to see the work on a daily basis. I'll show you the work I'm going to do, and then I'll show you the fact that I did it. Or I'll put pie in my face again. Which I'm not really immune to. For my friends and family that actually listen to this podcast, which I think is few and far between, I just want to say thank you to you guys who came out, crewed me in the race. I've texted you all on the side and told you each the integral part that you played, because every person on my crew helped me get there. And at first I was pretty upset with the 32 hours. I think I told people I was embarrassed. But then I was like, 32 hours is what I should have went. That's where my fitness was at. And I learned a lot. I learned about the nutrition thing. I learned what I got to do moving forward. I continue to learn. And that's the beautiful thing about this sport. Yeah. And one last thing I'll say, because I know people ask, I ran the H1s. Not sponsored. They're awesome. You should be running your hundreds, barring like rain, weather, water crossings, and things like that, in the same shoe, I feel like. You should have a shoe sock combo dialed in where you should tie your shoes to start the race, and that should be it. My last 3 big races have been like that. I don't tape my feet. I put a little bit of lube on between my toes. I put on a good pair of socks, a really good pair of shoes, and I don't take them off till the end of the race. All right? Thank you so much for listening, guys. And down in the description, there will be a link to that Discord. I have a feeling really, really soon that that's probably going to be the way that you'll contact me and talk to me and know exactly what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And it's free. So it's just a little app. It's like WhatsApp on your phone. I think there's 12 or 13 people in there. I'm going to call it the biggest ultramarathon Discord on the planet, because I don't know if anybody else has a Discord. I don't know if that makes me seem old or young. I've been feeling a lot like a college kid at a high school party these days. But yeah, you can hop in there. And whatever streaming service you're listening to, if you could just leave a quick review, it takes 2 seconds. Just scroll up to the top of the page, leave a good review. That's how these streaming services pump things to the top. And if you're on YouTube, I do not care. Well, I care, but I do not care if you like or subscribe for the algorithm. But the algorithm definitely likes if you leave a comment. And one of the worst things about YouTube is there's not a ton of feedback. So leave a comment down there and let me know what you're up to. If something I said is ridiculous, or if you agree with something I said, or if you've tested some of these things out that I've talked about, I could take the criticism and I want to learn from others. So please leave a comment with your experiences over on YouTube. And I will definitely respond, and we can have a good conversation there and then carry it over to the Discord if we need to. All right? Yeah. I feel good. I've been wanting to talk about this one. I think for the next race podcast, I'm going to get Moondog on here. So, Moondog, get your microphone ready, bud. Take it easy, guys.